like to introduce Rick Perez. He's an 18-year OpenText veteran. He's held many roles in the org, both in sales and technical, as well as cybersecurity sales leadership, and is currently Director of Partner Sales in the US, SLED.
Yes.
And part of the OpenText Public Sector Organization.
Correct.
And you reside in the beautiful Charleston, South Carolina.
Yeah, it's not terrible, except in the summertime when it's, 95% humidity.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks a lot. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate you guys having me on. Appreciate, everybody kind of taking the time to come out here. This is a beautiful venue. It's my first time out here, but man, I'm blown away by it. So, and I love the lack of humidity. So it's been fantastic. As you mentioned, I've been with OpenText. We'll go back to it, right? I started with Peregrine, got acquired by HP, got acquired by HPE or became HPE, got acquired by Micro Focus. We went through that acquisition just a little while back, and January 31, I think, was the official date. And now we're OpenText Cybersecurity is what I'm focusing on. So, who is OpenText? If you guys have never heard of OpenText, so OpenText, we're about 25,000 employees. Although I think we're just a shade less than that these days. We're pretty much any country that you can think of, we're there. One of the big areas that we focus on, obviously, is around cloud. We're trying to move everything, honestly, in our portfolio to the cloud. We spend about $2 billion today annually on R&D, and a lot of that is based on, and I'm kind of going off of, away from the slides just a little bit, just because some of this is beginning to change. We're spending about $2 billion annually in R&D, and a lot of that is really geared towards AI. So our CEO has said to us in no uncertain terms, like, hey, we want to be known as the AI company, and he's got plans for doing that. Our CEO also happens to be our Chief Technology Officer. So, the head nerd, decides we want to go AI, we're going AI. So it's been quite a journey, and it's exciting to be sort of in a company where we're really on the bleeding edge of things. So what I came to talk to you today is really about how we think about cybersecurity, and this is something when you've got as many different solutions as we have, we've really tried to be very cognizant about how we speak about our solutions and how we solve problems for companies and for our agencies and for everybody. So one of the things that we've sort of taken is this approach about zero trust. Zero trust has meant a lot of things. I think it started way back in the early 2000s. In fact, I think the first mention of it was actually a company called Digital Equipment Corporation, which my dad was a part of. He was an engineer way back when. That was the first mention of it. So I always say, well, through acquisition, technically, we've been the pioneers of zero trust in that space. So the way we think about zero trust is, moving away from kind of the old parameters around zero trust and what it used to mean, right? The perimeter was the most important thing, to taking really a data-centric type of approach. And what I mean by that is, everybody's heard about the latest breaches, right, at MGM and Caesars and all these different folks, right? The way that we approach zero trust and what it means to us is really around protecting the data. Because if you protect the data, first you have to discover it, then you have to classify it, then you have to figure out, put some policy around it, you tokenize, you encrypt, and the way we do encryption, I'll get into that in a second here. But if you do those types of things, and you do it and you take those steps first, what generally happens is, if somebody gets a hold of your data and grabs it and takes it away and wants to do something nefarious with it, you're still protected, right? Because the data that they're getting is actually junk data. And so that's the approach that we take. Has anybody ever heard of the term voltage or the name voltage? Okay, I'll get into the names here in a little bit. I didn't want to get into it too early, but we use what's called format-preserving encryption. So a lot of our customers, also build applications. They've got developers. They're doing, application development on a regular. And what often happens is, if you are taking that into account and building applications and you've got data, and you're using live data, let's say, to test against, what generally happens is you break the application. So what we do is something called format preserving encryption. It's a patented solution that we developed at Stanford many, many years ago at the beginning of Voltage. And what it allows us to do is to anonymize the data in a way that doesn't break your applications from testing against it. So our approach essentially is, let's go ahead and secure the data. So where is it? Let's make sure that we've got a handle on that so that if, someone were to get a hold of it, and I'll use an example, right? So just a simple example. You've got a house, you've paid a bodyguard to protect your house, or you've got a security system or whatever, but one of your kids decides to leave the door open. And you just so happen to have all your top financial papers sitting on your kitchen table. What good has the person protecting your house done for you, right? Protect your data, and you're going to be better off in the long run. You'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you can get back up and running very quickly. And I'll talk about how we get back up and running very quickly with the other solutions that we've been now made a part of in the OpenText world. So securing access, right? Who has the data? We also have solutions from what we call our Identity and Access Management Suite, NetIQ, if anybody's ever heard of that. Hopefully you have. It's been around for 25 years. We were one of the pioneers in identity and access. We can do anything from self-service onboarding, new account provisioning, ID proofing, MFA, you name it. We do pretty much the entire stack around identity. The nice thing about our solutions, honestly, is that we play nice with everybody in the sandbox. So, we may not have everything, or you may prefer something from a different vendor. Fantastic. Let's work together. Let's figure out how to do that. And then figuring out and monitoring the environment, right? What are the threats to that data? So, taking you kind of through just the main key points that we try to focus on. So what are the threats to that data? Whether they're known threats, unknown threats. We can do threat hunting. We can do risk scoring, response and mitigation. So, we really take a sort of, I don't want to say rudimentary type approach, but we really want to focus on the important things first. And, not so much, some of the other ancillary things that you might see others, sort of focus on. We really focus on solving the problem right away, so that if something were to happen, you're still protected. So thinking more holistically about zero trust and how we take the approach here. So first, like I mentioned, let's secure the data, right, with data protection and privacy. So, data discovery, inventory classification, controls, monitoring of that database as well, database activity monitoring. So let's gather our data. Let's figure out where it is, whether it's structured, unstructured, wherever it may be. And I'm sure everybody's got a lot of data. Data's growing at a ridiculous rate these days. But also, the types of data that you have, the amount of unstructured data that most organizations have is really just astronomical. 80% of it is generally unstructured data. So you want to get a hold of that stuff in case it is important to you. So once you've protected the data, we can put things like identity enforcement around it. So, let's make sure that we've got, attack-resistant MFA. We're doing API controls and monitoring, least privilege policy. And by the way, folks, I think, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. I believe they may have put these slides as well into your packet. So, awesome. So, just in case. These are some of the things that sort of differentiate us, if you will, in our approach here. Around the application security, if you guys have heard of Fortify, hopefully you've heard of Fortify. We've been in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, Leaders Quadrant for 10 straight years, and this will be 11 this coming year, coming up. We do dynamic, static, and open source scanning, intelligence and vulnerability scanning, API security, and integrated lifecycle application testing. So we really build it into the entire application lifecycle. On the other side, with my colleagues on the other side of OpenText, we do application development. So one of the spaces we've been in forever, if you guys remember Mercury and all of those different tools that came along, Load Runner and so on and so forth, we've been in that space for a long, long time. We've got a lot of market share there and still continuing to do a lot. we play right into the entire application lifecycle, whether you're doing waterfall, agile, whatever, it doesn't matter. And I've heard the term from some CISOs I've spoken to that say, hey, testing's testing, right? I spoke to a CISO at the state of Illinois, and he said, we're pushing our testing from, our application testing back down to the developers because we just don't have a large enough organization. So to me, testing has really become just testing. So we want to make sure that we're not putting code out there into the environment that has vulnerabilities, right? Because that's another way in to your data. And your data is the most important stuff that you have there. So around that, we also now, obviously coming into the OpenText world, we've got, NDR, so we can do lateral movement detection, advanced threat hunting, anomaly detection, and then we also do endpoint detection. So we really sort of cover and again, you'll see some, familiar names on there. Obviously, we play very well with our brethren at CrowdStrike and Microsoft, but we also have, our ArcSight solutions that you may have heard of. And along with that, we've added some things around security operations, obviously, with some SOAR capabilities and threat intelligence. And you'll see a lot coming out around threat intelligence with some of our AI solutions that we've got in the market. So this, I hope, gives you sort of a picture of what we're doing around cybersecurity specifically in our kind of this new realm around zero trust. Now, this is our entire stack here around cybersecurity. So as you can see, if you start, left to right and you start looking at these solutions, hopefully some of these are familiar to you. Like I said, we sort of cover the gamut around, application and API security, data privacy. Around our data privacy, around voltage, and I've been talking about data a lot because that's, I think, the most important piece here. If you start, if you go and do a search on voltage, you'll find we are in probably 9 of the 10 largest banks you've ever heard of, and all of the payment processors. And there's a reason for that. And we back up what we say, and we continue to do, a lot of business around, securing PII and personal identifiable information and so on and so forth. So around endpoint email security, obviously coming in, OpenText already had stuff from WebRoot and Zix, and you guys might have heard of Encase if they're doing e-discovery and things like that for legal purposes. Obviously, IAM and backup and recovery. And the backup and recovery stuff is kind of exciting to me because, I talk about securing your data, and I talk about things like ransomware, right? So, our folks at the folks over there at Caesars and at MGM decided, hey, it's just easier to just pay these guys and get moving. With the solution, from OpenText, you could have essentially backed everything up in a matter of minutes and just said, keep that data, it's garbage, we don't need it anyway. And they could have just continued in, business as usual moving forward. So Carbonite does backup recovery and archive, and it can do it in a matter of minutes and in a bunch of different ways as well. So we talked about threat detection and response with ArcSight, BrightCloud, and Bricata, and then digital forensics, as I talked about with Encase, doing e-discovery. So, the key message here really is around having a comprehensive portfolio of cybersecurity solutions. I don't know that there's another vendor out there that can do what we do in such a comprehensive way. If there is, I haven't met them just yet. But we really focus on simplicity and high efficacy, to make sure that we enable end-to-end security protection for our customers. Because it's really, at the end of the day, it's about outcomes. It's about solving problems. It's not about a shiny object. It's not about, selling you the latest little widget. It's cool if you look at it that way, and I would appreciate it, obviously. But that's not really where our strength has ever been. We've always been around solving big problems, big solutions for our customers. So, my hope coming away from this today is that hopefully I've kind of maybe sparked something in some ideas in somebody's heads here, and that we can maybe have some sort of follow-up at some point. Give me 30 minutes and let's have a conversation. I'll bring my team in, and if we can solve a problem for you, fantastic. And if I can't, hey, it's been great meeting you, and keep me in mind in case anything happens down the road. So with that, I've got just a little under 30 seconds here, so I'll wrap up. I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.